Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Awesome Build, where today we're going to take a look back at what went into making the stop-motion animated Nostalgia-Ween opening we did a few years ago. We'll look a little bit into how I made the puppets, how we constructed the sets, and a little bit on how I did the actual stop-motion animation. So I have some footage that I shot a few years ago that originally was going to be put, I think, on one of the DVDs as an extra, but I'm not sure I actually ever made it on one of the DVDs. So I'll share it with you guys today. Halloween is right around the corner again. And as we're going into Nostalgia-Ween next week, I thought it'd be kind of cool to take a look back at how we did that opening sequence. It's personally one of my favorite projects that I ever worked on here at Channel Awesome. When Doug first approached me about it, I think it was only about 2 weeks before he needed the footage. And he called me, he's like, I have a crazy idea. I'm not sure that you're really gonna have time to do it, but if there is, I think it would be great. He's like, but I wanted to call you and talk to you about it first and see if it was something that we could do, and if we could, do we have time, and all that kind of stuff. He knew that I was into stop motion, and I had done a little bit of stop motion before. I had some of my puppets and stuff like that lying around the studio. And he said he wanted to do a parody of The Nightmare Before Christmas. And I think before he even finished his sentence, I was like, yes, absolutely, we have time to do it. Well, we can do it. Even at the time, I was kind of like, I don't know necessarily how it's all going to turn out or what's all going to go into it, but I can't pass up this opportunity. I love The Nightmare Before Christmas, and anytime I get an opportunity to do stop motion, I jump on it. So I really couldn't pass it up. But I knew it was going to be pretty challenging given the time constraints that we had. I knew that I was going to have to construct the puppets and do the animation in about 2 weeks, and in addition to some of the other things that were going on. Yeah. So I enlisted the help of Barney and Rob, and I just kind of worked on the puppets, and they built the set. And the animation we did in about 2 days. Yeah. As soon as I constructed the Doug Skellington puppet, I started shooting some animation as kind of a test animation. And that actually wound up being a good portion of the walk cycle that we used in the animation. And then we spent a whole day basically shooting just the whole sequence where he walks up to the door, opens the door, and then the Pennywise comes out and shoots him. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little look back at how we kind of did some of that animation, how we built the puppets. And I also have my original cut included at the end that I presented to Doug about a day before it was supposed to go up. Hey, we're here at Channel Awesome Studios. Right now we're in the workshop art department, I guess. So yeah, a lot of people have actually been really curious about how we did the stop motion animation for the opening sequence in the Nostalgia-Ween episodes. I thought it'd be kind of fun to show you guys a little bit behind the scenes, show you how I did it, and yeah, let's come on. Okay, well here is the Doug Skellington puppet. As you see, it's about 12 inches tall. The armature is made out of thin gauge aluminum wire that I then covered with thin aluminum tubing to give it sort of, you can keep the shape, but it still bends. It's just jointed the way it would be on any sort of normal person, I guess. And the heads are the only things I really sculpted. The head removes, and as you can see, I've got some replacement heads, and yeah, it just pops on. And so he has the different expressions. And the suit, I kind of cheated.
I made it all out of duct tape. I wanted to, I used to be very thin and everything, and I wanted to keep that very sleek kind of look, and I had some black and white duct tape, and so I thought, all right, sure. So he's got a white duct tape shirt, duct tape suit. I had to build it fast. I guess little things like the tie is actually duct tape too that I painted red, and there's a wire in it so that I could animate the tie too. But that's basically it. I'll show you a little armature to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like before I covered it up. But the heads themselves I sculpted with white Sculpey, just Sculpey original basically. And I kept the original shape once the original color. Once I fired it in the oven, I kind of gave it that sort of almost bone kind of color. Used a really thin mixture of paint and ink to get the details kind of highlighted and paint the eyes and stuff like that. But yeah, that's about it. And then it's got of course, the little hat too that kind of I could switch in between puppets. But the way I made the clown puppet is a little bit different. I'll show you guys. Here's the Pennywise puppet that I made. Essentially, it's constructed the exact same way as the Doug Skellington puppet. In fact, here's a wire armature here. This is all the puppets kind of look like this underneath. I've got just a thin gauge aluminum wire. I've got it doubled up and covered with this aluminum tubing. The fingers are made out of like a thin copper wire. Essentially this you can get at any hardware or hobby store. But yeah, this is just like a plumber's putty, or you could use any kind of like two-part epoxy that kind of holds everything together. You don't want to use too much of it because you want to keep the overall weight of your puppet kind of low. So with the Pennywise puppet, and most stop motion puppets, you have your mounts for the puppet in the bottom of the foot. So you have a little nut in there that you can shoot a screw in. So then the puppet makes a placement on the stage. You shoot a hole through the stage, tie it down with a screw, and then move the neck puppet for the next step. Shoot a hole through your stage, tie it down with a screw. So the puppet has to be able to hold its entire weight for a lot of filming on just one foot a lot of times, especially if it's making a step or a leap or something. So you have to make sure that you keep the weight of your puppet pretty low. That's why I use usually aluminum is really lightweight. I cover the puppet, this one anyway, with just a couch cushion foam. As I said earlier, it's got a really crudely made costume with scraps of other bits. In fact, funny thing about all the yellow kind of parts of the costume was I didn't have any yellow material, so I took the Bumblebee Transformers Halloween costume that we had left over from demo reel and found the yellowest bits of fabric and cut it out and essentially just glued it to the foam. So that's how that was made. The difference kind of with this puppet as opposed to the Jack puppet. The Jack one I made, or Doug I should say, the Doug Skellington puppet, was made with several replacement heads with different expressions. This one, because he was basically, I wanted him to pop out and he does the laugh, I wanted to animate that. So, move that. How I made this one is I sculpted the face out of Sculpey and made a mold and poured liquid latex in the mold and peeled it off and basically got a mask and just put the mask over basically a head that I had sculpted to retain the shape. And then underneath the jaw, I just cut it in half, and the jaw is just a piece of sculpted epoxy with some wire so that I could open the mouth and close the mouth and animate it, frame by frame. So, yeah, that's about, I added a little mount here in case the face broke or something like that, and I didn't want to remake an entire puppet, so I just made a little mount so I could pop the head back on, and if I needed to change the face, I could, but it's still fully articulated. He turns his head and up and down and all that jazz, and opens his mouth too. So pretty cool. Now initially I thought I was going to have to do the entire thing green screened. So Barney and Rob Walker, actually they built that set that you see with the trees and stuff like that. And I had some cardboard tubing. So what Barney did was he took the cardboard tubing and cut it up and covered it with the stuff called Durham's Rock Hard Putty. And he just covered the basically just one half, because we weren't going to see it from the other side anyway, of these cardboard tubes, and then just ran streaks down it. When it hardened, it had this awesome texture that was like tree bark. And then he also made the little symbols, for the different seasons on the door, the little cartouches here. And Rob came in and painted it and gave it that tree kind of look, that dark kind of quality that was sort of very Nightmare Before Christmas. Rob then also painted that whole stage, like the actual stage that we shot it on. That was all Rob too. And actually it's kind of neat about the trees. We made them in several different sizes to give a sort of different perspective feel. So yeah, I've got the large tree. We had to make a door so that the clown steps out. Yeah, so this is the door that that Barney made, or the sort of close-up of the tree. What we did is, it's basically the same thing. It's just a larger piece of the cardboard tube, the back cut out so that I could animate the puppet from within. And once he covered it in the Durhams, he cut out the door, and I put a little hinge on it so that we could, the puppet opens up and comes out of the tree there. And as I said before, Barney made all of the symbols, the cartouches, whatever, and laid them in. And Rob did a beautiful job of painting these. I think, all in all, it came out beautifully. I thought it looked great. I was so happy that we could do it with a real stage, real set pieces. It made all the difference. Great job, guys. Okay, well, this is basically, I'm going to show how we animated the Doug Skellington walk sequence. When he's walking through the forest, and he's very animated and stuff, and looking around. I didn't want to have to build a stage that was super long in order for him to walk through it. I thought it'd be easier if I just shot it all green screen and put in a background, and then I could shoot him stationary and just move him as if he's walking. I have this green screen sort of stage that I built with this bracket with just a piece of threaded rod that I can adjust to whatever height the puppet is. And I put a mount in the back of the Doug puppet. And then this way, he stays in one spot, but I animate him as though he's walking. And you move him, get out of the way, take a picture, move him, get out of the way, take a picture. And you do that essentially 24 times per second, 24 frames a second. Kind of cheated a little bit because we were sort of strapped for time. So it was kind of an old trick. Basically, we shot, this one was 12 images per second. So we doubled up the amount of images. So then it still has the 24 frames, but that's all why it looked a little bit jerky, not as smooth. And this one is a little bit different than the clown puppet, because as I said with that one, we had to screw a hole through the bottom of the stage, lock it down with the screw, there's a nut in the foot. With the Doug puppet, the feet were so small that I really couldn't put a mount in the bottom of it anyway. By the time I got done doing the walk cycle, his leg broke. And so this is essentially, I had to replace this leg with just a piece of rod that I bent into a leg shape, and I did put a nut in this foot and locked it down for that whole sequence when he opens the door and gets shot. If you notice, this foot never leaves the ground because this is the foot that was holding him up. I didn't want to have to put the rod in for that sequence because we actually built the stage for that, and I didn't want to have to erase the rod out of that. It would have been a huge pain. I'm not even sure if it would have been possible to really do, because the rod would have been blocking part of the stage. Yeah, that's a little bit of the behind the scenes, how we did this and how generally most stop motion is done. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little look back at what went into making that stop motion intro for the Nostalgia-Ween a few years ago. And don't forget to leave a comment on what you'd like to see me build for Halloween. I've gotten lots of great suggestions so far. Don't forget to look me up on Facebook at James Jim J. Raz. And yeah, until next time, thanks so much again. Take care, guys.